Hello. I'm sure everybody seeing this knows me, but in celebration of my 5 years of recovery, I want to share my testimony. I'm going to try to keep it brief. It's going to sound like a weird start. I am kind of getting over a cold and a cough right now, so I sound kind of raspy. But anyway, I grew up in a Christian home. I was raised with Christian beliefs, but those beliefs did not protect me from the world. When I was 13 years old, I tried my first drug. It was ecstasy. And although I had been to school seminars about it, told you drugs were bad, I didn't really care. I tried it and I loved it. I immediately fell in love with the feeling. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Basically, the entire high school career for me was just a complete party, waste of time. I didn't really focus on anything. I had to redo. I had to redo my sophomore year, and I actually ended up not graduating. Just out partying, pretty much every minute I could get. I was out partying, smoking weed, drinking, doing various drugs. Until when I was 17 years old, I had a panic attack, and I wasn't exactly sure why. I had never had one before. All I knew was I thought I was going to die. And to make a long story short, basically from 17 to 20 years old, I never left my house. I transitioned to homeschool. At one point, I was having 5, 6, 7 panic attacks a day. My theory on why that happened is I had a developing brain, and I was throwing so many different chemicals at it that I caused a short circuit or a fuse to blow or whatever you want to call it. And I thought my life was over. I mean, for a couple years, I basically never left the house. And the only reason I would leave if it was to get drugs during this time, I became heavily addicted to opiates. It was really the only thing that calmed me down. It's the only thing I found to give me peace in that time. I lost contact with all my friends. I basically had no purpose but to survive. So those 2 years of my life were absolutely awful, horrible. Then I turned 21 years old, and I met this girl on MySpace at the time, if anybody remembers what that is. And she had shown me attention that I hadn't felt in several years. And I don't know why, but I suddenly felt confident enough. The panic attacks had stopped, so I decided to go out with her. That turned into a 3-year relationship that basically turned into the first time I ever tried crystal meth. And basically did that for 3 years, doing various other drugs during that period of time. I'm trying to remember. So, and then when I was 23 years old, she broke up with me, cheated on me with a drug dealer, actually. And the next year, I was just in a depression, living at my parents' house, doing drugs every day, stealing, to support my habit. And then one day, my parents approached me, and they were like, "Hey, we talked to this guy. He's called an interventionist, and he told us that he can get you into rehab, and we can use our insurance." And I was so desperate and broken that I was like, okay, let's do it. So we made the plans. I hopped on a plane, flew to California, and attended my first rehab program in Costa Mesa, California. At the time, I was very addicted to methadone. I landed in California and proceeded to experience probably some of the worst 3 weeks of my life. I didn't sleep. I did eat, but I was just miserable. My skin was crawling all day, every day for like literally 3 weeks straight, nonstop. It was an insane program. It was very expensive. The houses that they had us in out there were like mansions, and there was a campus that everybody would go to attend their programming. We went to meetings around California. You were chauffeured everywhere. We went to the beach. We went surfing. We toured all the cool places. It was awesome. I basically spent, I think it was like 106 days out there. And I felt alive again. And I started to reconnect with God for a little bit of time while I was there too. But I missed my home. I missed my family. I was ready to come back. I took a train back to Kansas, and one of the first things I did on that train was drink. I still had in my mind that was like a reward for me or something. I'm not saying that I spun out into like an alcoholic immediately, but the problem was I still had this thing in my head, this neural pathway. When you're an addict for a long period of time, your brain literally physically changes. It develops new neural pathways, and your response, whether it's to pain or suffering or celebration or excitement, is to use drugs or to drink alcohol. So I was pretty much the same person I was, just based on my habits. So I got back home. I got a job at Ribbit Computers as a computer technician. I moved in with my sisters, which should have been one of the best times of my life. But I basically lasted about 3 months before. The excuse I gave myself was that I was lonely. So I hit up some of the old crew, and I went over to their house, brought a case of beer, and basically started partying again. But when I showed up there, everybody was doing heroin. So I found myself a new habit. So let's see. Let's see, how old was I at this time? I was like 25, I think. I fast forward a little bit. I got a job at Mattress Hub. Shout out Ryan Beatty. And the problem was, it was such an incredible opportunity, but he hired me basically right when I had begun my heroin addiction. So, I lasted 4 months maybe, and then he had to fire me. I couldn't show up to work. I was leaving early. It was just a nightmare. So he fired me, and I freaked out. When I was fired, I was like, okay, maybe if I go back to rehab, I can get my job back. Maybe they'll give me my job back. So I went to rehab at Valley Hope here in Kansas, and I basically wasn't involved in the program in the slightest. I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. Graduated the program, basically did like 30 days, maybe 26 days, came back home, and I started, what did I do at this time? I moved in with a friend of mine named Aaron, and shout out Aaron. I started, basically was jobless for a couple months, finally found a job doing these sales events, traveling. Probably the last thing I wanted to do, or should have done right then, was travel. Did these sales events in Oklahoma, traveled from city to city, and very quickly started using again. And this time, I basically held on to my addiction for about a year and a half. Fast forward, I came back, got a full-time job at a Mattress Hub location. I've got a funny story. This is kind of dark, but I remember one day I got a call from my manager at the time, and he said, "Hey, Emil, the toilet. I had to call somebody out. It was clogged. It wouldn't flush." And the guy, he found like a bunch of needles in the toilet, and I was like, "Oh man!" It was, where we were in a rough part of town, so I was like, "Ah man, freaking people on Broadway." And then I was so out of it, I didn't even think. But he told me, he's like, "Dude, we don't let anyone else use our bathroom." So he drug tested me. I started going to methadone clinic again, to try and keep my job. But, I was stealing stuff. I was selling stuff out the back. Quickly, I was fired again. This time, I really went off the rails, though, when I lost my job that time. For the next 1 to 2 years, I can't even remember how long, basically till I was 29 years old. I was doing meth, heroin, Xanax. Many days I would just sleep in my car. I would stay in parking garages in downtown Wichita. I was stealing to support my habit. It was miserable. I went in and out of several different jobs during that period of time. One day, oh gosh, I forgot about this part of the story. This guy and his wife, they're like a, very well-off, wealthy people. They showed up at my work. I was working at Sleep Number, and long story short, he saw me. He wanted to help me. They offered me to live in their basement, which, just an idea of what this basement was like. It had a movie theater in it with theater seating. Very nice. Gave me a car. Basically gave me everything I'd need to be successful. And that lasted about 3 weeks. Immediately, I moved in, and I just start selling stuff out of his basement. He was a retired cop, so he knew everybody in the police. One day, I was on my way home, and I got pulled over. And immediately, the cop gets out of the car, pulls me out, handcuffs me, puts me in his front seat, which was weird, and walked a drug dog around my car, which just went. The drug dog just lost his mind. He ended up finding like a 1/4 ounce of meth, 20 Xanax pills, meth pipe. I was driving on a suspended, bunch of stuff. Basically, I was facing 2 felony charges. Went to jail, obviously, and spent a few nights in jail. Got bailed out of jail. Went to stay with my parents, and then, for like another 6 months, I was just kind of in a drug-fueled daze. 28, 29 years old was a very, very dark time for me. Very isolated. All I did was play video games, doing every drug you can imagine under the sun, regularly, every day, constantly. And one sec, I'm going to get some water. All right, my hair's starting to get a little crazy because I didn't put any product in it. So, so anyway, 28, 29 years old was a very dark time for me. But when I was 29, I started to feel a desire to listen to Bible sermons again for some reason. I started to listen to sermons by John MacArthur. I started reading my Bible again. Mind you, I'm like smoking meth, reading my Bible. It's like a very bizarre time. And then I remember one day I read the scripture, and it was Jesus telling the masses that someday there's going to be many of you that's going to come to me and say, "Lord, Lord." And these people are going to say, "We cast out demons in your name. We did many miracles in your name." These people believed that they served him. And his response to them was basically, "Get away from me, you workers of iniquity." Or some translations say, "You doers of lawlessness." Basically means you who refuse to obey me and follow me, who just do whatever you want. I looked up the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, self-control. None of this I had present in my life. In fact, I looked up the opposite fruits, and the fruits of the children of Satan, and I had every single one of those in my life. And I was terrified because I thought I was a Christian, and yet I had no evidence of that in my life at all. So I had a bunch of meth, I had a bunch of Xanax, I had a bunch of drugs, and I flushed those drugs down the toilet, and I got on my knees, and I believe for the first time in my life I sincerely asked God to save me. And he did. Within 3 months, I got into a rehab here in Wichita, and the events that played out, the sober living that I got into, the men I met along the way, the things that happened in my life over the last 5 years are just incredible. It's because of God. He pierced my heart at my darkest moment and granted me conviction, because I went years when I had no conscience for the evil I was doing. But for some reason, he decided to make me feel conviction for my sin. And I just, today I'm far from perfect. I work on my relationship with him all the time. None of us are perfect, but Christ says in the Bible that if we love him, we will obey his commands to the best of our ability. And that's not something that a lot of us want to hear. And, I fall short every day. But I'm thankful for the sanctification that I have in my life, that I am getting better. For the first time in my life, this is going to sound so small and silly, but I have my own house. I have my own car. Where I work, the people value me. I'm working on starting a business this year, and it's just, everything in my life is nothing like it used to be. So I just wanted to share my testimony that God can save. He really can. But you have to be humble enough to truly give yourself to him completely, to surrender and say, God, I'm done doing things my way, and I need your help. Because if you approach him with a sincere heart, if you are lost, broken, have no direction in your life, don't have any purpose, if you come to him sincerely and ask him into your life, he will do things that will amaze you. Thank you guys for listening.